West Bank attracted a huge variety of itinerant workers attracted by the fledgling chemical industry. All of these people came together living cheek by jowl in tightly knit, back-to-back terraced housing and formed a unique community which at one time housed up to maybe 10,000 people.
Everybody knew everybody in West Bank. I don't think there was ever a stranger on West Bank because everybody knew everybody. And if you came to live here, you weren't long before you were known. If you was ill, you'd no need to worry, the neighbours looked after you. If you had a baby, the neighbours looked after you. Nobody need have any time off work or anything, the neighbours did it for you. You helped one another and you were really good neighbours to one another.
Well, the people used to do the steps and the windows and make them beautiful and clean first thing in the morning. They were always clean.
I can remember all the mums, all the housewives, constantly cleaning the steps and brushing the paths, and I can remember doing it actually for my mum. We used to wet the step and then rub over it with the donkey stone and then use a scrubbing brush.
Numerous shops in Mersey Road sold the donkey stone. It was like soft stone, which you wet it and rub it on the step, and it's, you know. But next, as soon as it rained, it was all washed off. Some people used to use cardinal red. Some lovely steps, you know.
Carpets were very few and far between. A hearthrug, big fenders round the hearth, round the fire, a set of tongs and a shovel, all brass, and they were cleaned in the middle of the week, wrapped up, put away till Saturday morning, then all laid out again nice and clean for the weekend. And that's how they worked down West Bank.
If you were clean on West Bank, you were terribly clean. You had to be.
Everybody had a cat because there was a lot of vermin, and everybody had a cat to keep the mice down. And people that didn't have a cat used to borrow ours. You know, if they'd seen mice, they'd say, "Can I borrow your cat, Lily?" to my mum. And a lot of the cats came when you shouted them, because a lot of them were called Tibby. So if you shouted Tibby, you got about 5 cats at your back door.
Well, actually I was born in Irlow Street. My parents were in lodgings. Family then were myself, my brother, mother and father. Then we moved to Vermont Street, where my mother had 3 girls. That made a family of 7. There were 2 bedrooms. Well, until we grew up, we were, slept in one room really. Mother and father had a bed in one room, and perhaps one in with them, and the rest slept under overcoats during the winter.
Our toilet used to face the railway, and used to go in the toilet. I never used to shut the door. I used to wait for the trains to come over, and it was near enough for me to wave to them, the engine drivers, and they'd wave back.
Being a child in West Bank was good fun because you got prom to play in. We got going down the cut, which was against out of bounds, but we still went there.
We used to play in the street sometimes, but we used to play on the dock, make swings and go swimming in the dock. I learned to swim in the outlet from the power station, which we used to call the bubble. It was where the warm water came from the turbines back into the river.
All the men used to go swimming in there, in the river, down by the dock. And we used to pinch the clothes and hide them. When they came up out the water, the clothes weren't there. Sometimes we used to mix them, you know, put different clothes in different. We used to play all sorts.
We used to have what you called mug shops, and what mug shops were sort of old crockery that was broken, And if they had, years ago, they used to have crockery with gold lines on them round the rim of the cup and the saucer. And if you had those, they were counted as money for the mug shops. You didn't use real money and you didn't use toy money, that was just make-believe money. And if there was more than one line on them, they were more valuable.
If we were short on a colour, we'd accidentally break something in the house and get a clout across the ear hole for it, especially if it was some best china, but you wanted to be top of the mug shop brigade. And we used to shout to each other, "Mug shop's open, come and buy, don't be shy." And then you'd knock on the lavatory wall.
On a Saturday, I'd get a jam jar and we'd go to the Century Pictures and they let you in with a jam jar. That was the price to go in with a jam jar. And we'd got the pictures and it used to be forever breaking down the film. And then we'd all stamp our feet and boo till it come back on again.
I always remember when we used to go to the pictures, it was when the musicals were going, Diana Durbin and Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, and I used to live at the top of the entry. And what I used to think in my silly little way was that the Hollywood producer would be down West Bank and he'd hear me singing from the toilet and rush in and discover what a wonderful voice I'd got and I'd become a star overnight. But no Hollywood producers ever came down West Bank, so I never got discovered.
I can remember being in the kitchen and my mother and my aunt in the shop cooking away with these chips, and all of a sudden everybody was screaming. The shop was empty. Everybody dashed out on what they called a cob. What was a cob when I was a boy? And I was just in time. I dashed out the front door, which you didn't have to go through the shop. It had a separate door. I was just in time to see this ship turn over, all tipped over. And bodies flying, swimming everywhere, screaming, people screaming. I could see some where they could swim, and I don't know where the tide had got hold of them, and he was carrying them away down the river. One particular man on it had iron down his leg, one particular man, and he saved quite a few people. But as you know, most people would drown that particular time.
The attendance was low because the tide was out, and they always used to say it was the St Pat's and West Bank were the only schools whose attendance depended upon the state of the tide, because over here at the the power station, they used to tip the coal. The big lorries used to come and a lot of it fell into the river. The barges would come up from St Helens with the coal to the factories in Widnes, and it fell into the river and was washed up onto the sand. So many a time the children would go out on the sand with a sack and they'd be picking coal, and it was a way of keeping warm all through the winter.
Some of the hardship stories that some had, like mothers taking food out of shops, you know, taking it and to feed the children.
In 1942, we'd just gone upstairs. We didn't go in the air raid shelters. We'd stopped going in the air raid shelters. We'd go under the stairs. And this night, we'd just gone up the stairs. And all of a sudden the sirens went and a plane came over and must have dropped its bombs. The thump, 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 thump. 3 thumps went. They must have dropped the bombs in the river, which was quite near to where I lived. And then we heard this plane coming round, and we went to the back door and looked out. But we could hear it, and then all of a sudden it came over the yard. Not low down, but not on top of the houses, but low. And it was all in flames. And we watched it go up the road, up the back entry, and it came down in Heath Road.
I got evacuated just as the war started. Yes, I was really ready for leaving school when the war started, but I was evacuated. But I was only 13, coming 14 in the August, so I hadn't really left school. 3 sisters went. Brother, I think, no, brother didn't go. I think he would be working at the time. Well, don't know, we only stayed about 2 or 3 weeks. No bombs dropped, so we came back home again. But we had a good time. It was the first holiday we'd had.
The corned beef saga, this happened, you have to remember that it was after the war, I think it was 1947, and we were still in the time of rationing. And so when a barge on the river overturned with its load of Argentinian corned beef, and boxes of this corned beef were floated down the river, there was huge excitement and people rushed down to the shore. And I was probably 14 at the time, and like the others I went in, and it was low tide, so we all waded into the water, and there was a lot of people there, and these boxes of corned beef must have, as it were, trundled along the bottom of the river and were carried along, so you couldn't see them. They weren't floating on the top, so you went wading, trying to feel for these boxes, and I stumbled across one, you see, Eureka, you see. They came looking for the thing and warning us not to eat it, not to find it, not to take it away, but nobody could find it. It had all mysteriously disappeared into larders and cupboards and stairs and hiding places on West Bank.
Women, you know, with them under a big coat, marching up the street, you know, looking pregnant. Men had very deep pockets, so they'd stick a great big tin of corned beef in their pockets. The kids with their trolleys, they were sitting on those, covered in a piece of carpet, and had corned beef tins as the seat on the trolleys.
In the St Helens Canal, which was, it started at West Bank, and they used to bring the sugar barges up from Liverpool, but it was all that heavy brown sugar. But when they were there at night, people used to go down and lift a couple of the hatch planks, and there was more sugar pinch than soft milk. And we always had plenty of sugar in the tea, but it was always brown.
Every August bank holiday Monday, they had a fete down there, and I used to help an old lady to sell a pop. And they had, the children used to build sand castles, and then they'd compete, you know, and then they'd judge the best one, and they'd get a prize. And they used to have a greasy pole, and at the top they had either a ham shank or a leg of lamb. And the men, they used to go mad to get to the top, and they'd go halfway up and slide down. And we saw one chap go to the top, and we'd say, "Oh, go on, get," and he just let go. I don't know who got it then, but we were all so disappointed. It was fun though, watching them. Real good fun. Those were the days.
One of my early memories, again when I was younger, was that on a Sunday brass bands used to come round. The brass bands I can remember particularly was Nazareth House, which was the Catholic orphanage down St Michael's Road. St Mary's COE Church, they had a band, they came round. And I'm fairly certain the St Patrick's Church had a band as well, because they were quite loud. My brother could always tell who it was by the tunes or the way they played. I couldn't. I had to go out and look at the banners to see if I could look. They had the big banners and everybody parading behind them.
There was Zion, St Mary's, yeah, at the bottom. Zion was at the bottom of Oakland Street here. Heartland was at the top. St Patrick's, and there was a Welsh chapel in Milton Street.
Oh, it was very old. It was lovely. It was. It was at the top of Oakland Street, and it had a lovely Sunday school and a lovely church, and the church was lovely. It was. They had a balcony and the choir, and we used to have anniversaries, and we used to have to bring chairs into the chapel because there were so many people went.
My sister made my dress. I was no good at dressmaking, and it was out of parachute silk, and it was green, the parachute silk, and when you washed it, it went white, and it was quite a nice feel to it. It was like a green and white stripe till you washed it, and my dress had leg and mutton sleeves, if you know what I mean, and I had a bustle.
Oh, Dr. Hutchinson, he was fantastic. Well, when my father was poorly with this flu, well, we all had it, everybody in the house had it. And he used to come round to see us, and he brought a big bottle of medicine, gave each one of us a dose. And when my father died, he never sent my mother a bill. Never sent her a bill, and I've never forgotten that.
We used to walk across the river, and we had to pay a penny to go across on Widnes side. And we'd go halfway across, and then we would get a piece of paper and make a loop with it, drop it over the edge of the bridge, and it would roll, make your piece of paper go over the transporter bridge. And if you did that, you sort of scored a goal. That was good fun, that.
The DVD of this will be on sale at all good booksellers from next week onwards. Immediately after this function tonight, we're having a grand social and dance in the hall. You're welcome to come if you can stay. And that's it. The exhibition panels, together with the DVD, will be on public display in the Catalyst from next week. Those panels in the cafe area